when you start from a place of, well, they're not going to listen to us right away, isn't that giving up power?
No,
And
no.
might they listen to you if the entire class of Morehouse walks out on the president's speech? If they're in a position where they'd have to basically not allow 50% of the class to graduate if they're going to start cracking down in these authoritarian ways on people who start to protest.
Right, right. So on the one hand, I can see that. On the other hand, I don't want you to overread what I just suggested. I said, look, and part of it is about how do we think in terms of immediate, intermediate, and long-term strategy in terms of how we struggle. So if in my environment, it's not going to be the case that Princeton's going to divest tomorrow. It's not. So what does it mean for students to be in the encampment, to think about its demands in light of that reality, right? How do you imagine struggle under those conditions, right? And so it doesn't mean to confine or constrain your imaginations in that regard, but it means that you have to be strategic, right?
And what does that mean?
Well,
what is the more tactical version of the encampments in your view?
No, I'm not suggesting. I'm saying what I'm trying to ask, though, is the basic question: what constitutes victory in this moment, or win in this moment? It's a basic question that we have to ask if we're struggling. We have to ask. I mean, you can't ask people to risk their careers, their lives, if there's no end game in view. It seems to me.
I think are willing to do so for several reasons. One, I would argue that the use of anti-riot gear, basically driving tanks down the street in New York to get, 25, 30 college students out of Hamilton Hall, was a visual event, was a spectacle that had an effect of, one, drawing a great deal of public attention to the disproportionate force being levied against college students, the misuse of resources of an overly funded New York Police Department that has not released its case clearance rates in a couple of years. So it's getting more money and won't even tell you what % of crimes it's actually solving.
Right.
And that all of those things are serve to advance the goals of pointing out the authoritarian investment of our political system, not in peace, not in education, not in public safety, but in supporting America's imperial aims overseas and in crushing dissent.
Yeah, that's compelling. Yeah.
And the reason I keep asking you, okay, so then what is the more strategic option is because I am concerned that when you go up to a group of people who have already demonstrated a willingness to put their careers or bodies on the line and say, well, maybe you should be thinking through whether there's a better way to do this because you don't want to be doing this for naught, without a specific ask for a change in strategy, it can, I think, come across as trying to disincentivize people from doing something because it's not going to work anyway.
No. I have a very democratic sensibility. I'm not a Stalinist.